A lot of retirees worry about running out of money, but very few realize what causes it. It's not market crashes, it's not overspending, it's not even retiring too early. One of the biggest threats to your retirement is something most people underestimate: healthcare costs that double later in life. That's the 2X rule. It's a simple but critical principle that the healthcare budget that you start in retirement with could be twice as high by the time you're 80 or 85. And if you haven't planned for it, it can quietly drain your portfolio in the exact years you need it to last the longest. Hi, I'm Mark Wisniewski, president of Southern Incomes. In today's video, I'm going to show you what the 2X rule means for your retirement plan, why so many people get caught off guard, and how to protect your lifestyle in the years your costs will be highest. If you find this helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. Let's get started. Part 1, why most retirees underestimate healthcare costs. Let's start with the obvious. Retirement healthcare is expensive. But what most people miss is how that cost grows and when it hits the hardest. In your early 60s, it doesn't seem too bad. You're relatively healthy. Maybe you're just paying for Medicare Part B, a Medigap plan, and maybe have some prescriptions. But here's what happens. As you age, premiums go up. Your prescriptions multiply, and those out-of-pocket costs, things like hearing, vision, dental, and long-term care, they start to creep in. And if you're budgeting based on what you're paying today, you're setting yourself up for a major gap later on. This is where the 2X rule comes in. You need to assume that whatever you're spending on healthcare in your early retirement years, you'll be spending double by your mid to late 70s. And it's not just because of inflation, but because the volume and intensity of care tend to increase as we get older. And if your plan doesn't account for that, you may find yourself making painful trade-offs later, cutting travel, delaying care, or relying on adult children for support. Part 2, what the 2X rule actually looks like in dollars. So let's put some numbers to this. Say you're 65 and retiring with a solid Medicare supplement plan. So you're spending about $6,000 a year on premiums, copays, and maybe have some prescriptions. That feels manageable. But fast forward 15 years, it's a very different picture. By your early 80s, that cost could easily reach $12,000 a year or even more. Why? Because Medicare premiums increase with income, and those prescription costs typically rise with age. You have more frequent doctor visits, diagnostics, specialist care, and possibly long-term care needs, which, by the way, aren't fully covered by Medicare. And here's a kicker. Those numbers are just averages. If you or your spouse develop a chronic condition, need mobility assistance, or start to face cognitive decline, those costs can skyrocket. Now, some retirees try to solve this by just hoping for the best, but hope is not a strategy, especially when it comes to healthcare and retirement. The smarter move? Build in the 2X rule now so that your income plan adjusts as those healthcare needs start to rise. Part 3, how to plan for the 2X rule without overreacting. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you need to start hoarding cash or panic about those future costs. Planning for the 2X rule doesn't mean oversaving. It does mean being strategic with your income plan. So, for example, here's how I help clients for rising healthcare costs without blowing up the rest of their retirement. Number 1, budget for healthcare in phases. Don't use the same dollar amount for 30 years. Create a rising cost line item that assumes higher spending in your 70s and in your 80s. This gives your retirement income plan room flex before those bigger bills start to show up. 2, consider health-based inflation separately. General inflation might be 2 or 3% a year, but healthcare costs often rise faster. Think in terms of 5 to 7%. That difference compounds fast, and most plans just ignore it. 3, use guaranteed income for non-negotiables. If you know that you're going to need $1,000 a month for your health care later in life, consider how Social Security, pensions, or even annuities can help cover that base. The fewer surprises you have, the more peace of mind you'll have. 4. Be proactive with Medicare planning. Choosing the right Part D plan, managing IRM AA brackets, and reviewing coverage every year. All of that can save you thousands over time. Many retirees just auto-renew, and they wind up leaving money on the table. Part 4, what most people get wrong about long-term care. Long-term care is one of the biggest blind spots in most retirement plans. It's not fun to talk about, but here's the truth. 70% of retirees over age 65 are going to need some form of long-term care. And the costs range anywhere from $50,000 to $120,000 a year or more, depending on where you live and, of course, what kind of care you need. The problem? Medicare doesn't cover most of it, especially if it's considered custodial care and not medical treatment. And many retirees assume, well, if it happens, we'll just figure it out. But here's the problem with that logic. By the time it happens, you may not be in a position to make smart decisions anymore. That's why I tell clients the best time to plan for long-term care is well before you're going to need it. So that could mean setting aside a dedicated long-term care reserve, or looking into asset-based long-term care coverage, or simply coordinating care with adult children so that expectations are very clear. The bottom line is this: if you're using the 2X rule, long-term care costs aren't going to be a shock. They're part of the plan, and that makes all the difference. Part 5, what you can do right now. So, how do you plan for this without guessing or overreacting? Here are a few smart, simple steps that you can make today. Number 1, use the 2X rule in your plan. Don't assume healthcare spending is going to stay flat. Start with your estimated healthcare costs at age 65 and then double that number projecting for age 85. Of course, it's not exact, but it gives your plan the margin that it needs to stay on track. 2, build in inflation protection. Whether it's your income strategy, long-term care planning, or your annuity options, make sure you're factoring in realistic inflation assumptions for healthcare, not just general inflation. 3, consider a health savings account, or HSA, if you're still working. HSAs offer tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, and they can be one of the best tools for covering future medical costs, especially if you don't touch the account until retirement. 4, revisit your Medicare strategy. The plan you choose at 65, whether it's original Medicare with a supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan, that can have a major impact on your long-term out-of-pocket costs. Working with a fiduciary who understands the full picture is key here. The bottom line, you can't predict every medical expense in retirement, but if you plan with the right assumptions and build in room for those rising costs, you won't have to fear for what's around the corner. The 2X rule is just one part of building a retirement income plan that works. Because when your income is reliable, your taxes are minimized, and your health care is covered, you get to focus on living, not worrying. If you want help designing a plan that does exactly that, book a call with me using the link in the description. We'll walk through your current plan and see where you can add more clarity, protection, and peace of mind. I'm Mark Wisniewski. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.